Well, thanks everybody for joining me on this webinar. It's good to be back here once again, now in the 5th in the series of understanding pain. And today we're going to be talking about water. So the story of water begins at our conception. And as we grow inside our mother's uterus, there's amniotic fluid all around us. When we go through that birth canal or we're delivered by C-section, there's a gush of water all around us. And as we go through our life, water has an integral part to us, and it takes us right through to the end of our life when we die and our body decomposes either by nature in the earth or with cremation. And the water's taken out of us and we're left with ash. Quite a somber thought, but water is part of who we are. And in the middle part, between our birth and our death, water plays a fundamental role, I believe, in not only our health, but also in our healing of chronic pain. And that's why I've introduced this subject in this webinar series. So where do we use water? Well, we drink. We drink water or other liquids, other fluids. Many of them are full of water. Even my enjoyment of a little bit of whiskey now and again, 40% alcohol. You know, what else is in there? There's water and other constituents. Eating foods, you know, the healthier foods, the veggies, fruits, you know, full of water, full of fiber and minerals and nutrients. Lots of foods. The more water in the food, the better it is for us in a way. When we come to cleaning, washing our hands, when we shower or bath, water is on us. Feels better to have a shower. How do you feel after a bath or a shower? Feels good to wash your hands, wash your hair. And then things that we do with water. Well, we go swimming, right? We immerse ourselves inside the water, on the water. We have leisure activities like maybe canoeing or on small speedboats or big boats. It's interesting when we just slow down and start to pay attention to the subject of water, how much it's a part of us. We go for walks by the ocean or the river or the lake. How does it feel to be there? And even above us, when we look up, yesterday I was out for a walk in the forest and it was raining. It was pouring of rain. Loved it. So the rain's above us. The water's above us. It's in the clouds. So water is a part of our world. It's a part of us. And that's why we need to embrace this subject and see how it can help us more and more with this journey of pain. So what about your personal story? You know, for me, my personal story was the age of 5. Me and my friends were in a swimming pool in holiday in the north of England. 3 of us were age 5 and 6. None of us could swim. And we went down a slide, huge slide, down into the water. My dad pulled my 2 friends out because they were drowning. And the lifeguard had to dive in and save me and bring me out. So I had a near drowning experience at the age of 5. And I went on to learn to swim and became a national level swimmer and loved it. And actually shaped my study habits, which led me to medicine, which leads me all these years later, 30 years later, to teaching you about water. So here we go. And even my family heritage, it just came up in my mind as I was talking. You know, my father was a fisherman. I'm a 7th generation fisherman lineage. So our livelihoods were water-based as well. So that's my personal story. But what about you? I suggest in the next week, next few days, just take some time and ponder this and see where water has taken you in your journey. There's a wonderful book written by a marine biologist called Wallace Nichols, and it's called The Blue Mind. The surprising science of that shows how being near, in, on the water can make you happier. Wonderful, wonderful research been done by this marine biologist. He's been contributing to other books as well, written several books. And the first time I came across him was in the book called Masters of Mindfulness, which is an audiobook which have many leaders in the world of the subject of mindfulness. And he was in there, so it kind of caught my attention. So I've done a live stream on this subject as well in previous months. And it's amazing because the book message is when we are in water, around water, underwater, it has a positive benefit on us. You know, and one surprising thing I got from the book, which I can relate to, because I grew up in the north of Scotland on the ocean. My bedroom was looking over the ocean and the harbour. And not that I can live in a location like that right now, but, you know, I have got pictures of my living room of water by the ocean, the ones with the canals in Venice. And even looking at pictures of water can have a healing effect on us. That's amazing. It's amazing to me. So lots of reflection to be done in your life right now. So the question is why? Why is water so important? Well, the reason is we are water. Physically, we're made up of water. 99% of us by weight is hydrogen and oxygen. And as you know, H2O is the chemical formula for water. So it's two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen. It's basically who we are by weight, 99%, and the other 1% is the minerals. That's the calcium, making up your bones, sodium, chloride, potassium, big mineral inside our cells, and many, many different types of minerals make us up as a human being. By volume, we are 70% water. And that's why being hydrated is really important, because this is who we are. So with the research around water, it's pretty clear to me that water balances us. That homeostatic, which just means balance in the body, the core fundamental physiological principle that keeps us alive. You know, you can't have your temperature too high or too low or we die. You can't have your blood pressure too high or too low. You can't have your pulse too high or too low for too long. We need a homeostasis. We need the balance. And water helps us balance our bodies. Not only that, but it calms our mind. It makes us happier, says the research with Wallace Nichols. It calms the mind. It not only calms the mind, but it feels good. It's a tonic for the heart. So let's go back a little bit and we'll review the physiology of chronic pain. Why is this all important? Well, it's essential for healing chronic pain because chronic pain stimulates the fight response, or the freeze, flight, fight response. And that's just a normal survival response that happens to all of us almost every day, if not every day of our life, at different levels of our existence. And it's there to protect us. It's not something we learn, it's something we are born with. You know, the old reason of touching the hot stove, you don't do it again, you learn quickly. And that response is an appropriate survival technique. But in chronic pain, that response is 24/7. Most of it is unconscious. Some of it is conscious. So this brain is being wired for chronic pain. And we know with the studies done in Chicago about 2013, that within 3 months of pain being in the body, the limbic system takes over the control center of it, and therefore drives this autonomic nervous system with the sympathetic part, that's the part to do with fight flight, and it drives the body into tension state, get ready to run, get ready to fight, or freeze. So that's what's going on with the fight flight, and then the body sends a signal back to the brain, and the loop doesn't stop. I share this with my patients every time I'm having a new consultation to describe the fight flight response. And we've talked about this in previous webinars. This is really important to remind us of why it's so stressful to be in this body with pain. And one of the most important things is embracing the fear around it. Because when we embrace it, to realize it's a survival response that's not helping us, then we don't need to fear it. We need to embrace it. We need to move forward with it. We need to do things. If you can't do too much, that's okay. You do what you can and you start from there. But getting active and moving forward with our life is essential. And not just physical, but maybe there's emotional pain that's stopping us moving forward. An experience recently where I was with a friend and we're talking about a deep core issue. And it came out in the open, we were able to talk about it, and we felt this shift, this connection that wasn't there before, because we actually addressed the fear. So there's emotional fear. There's mental fear or mental pain, thoughts, beliefs, values that have been embedded in our mind for a long time, maybe our entire life. I think definitely one of the reasons I have had chronic pain throughout my life in different ways was because of that near drowning experience. Put me in that fight flight response. And not that we can always figure out why chronic pain is there, but if we go back, we ask questions and we reflect, there will be sources for this. But I'm not a big believer in understanding where it all comes from. Well, the important thing is understanding what we're doing today and moving forward with the knowledge that we've got. So in essence, water is a very, very helpful tool in lots of different ways. And I'm really looking forward to the Q&A at the end of this to dive into, questions around the subject and hearing stories. What's your story with water? So there's two main things that I'm going to talk about now to encourage you to be active, to change how your body is working around the water. And the first thing is active meditation. To be present. So when you're having a shower, be present with the water falling on your head. Not just have the shower, but to be present and have the shower. So not just doing something, but being as well. Next time you're outside and it's raining, or you're inside and it's raining, be present and just listen. Or you're outside and you're feeling the water on your clothes. Be present with it. Next time you go to the waterfront, maybe the ocean, maybe the sea, maybe the river, maybe the lake, stop and breathe. Just take it in. Very, very healing thing to do. Next time you go for a swim, spend some time under the water and just be present. Feel the water supporting you. hot tub. Some of you got hot tubs. Most of us have access to a bath, and if not, just a shower. But yeah, the hot tub, different experiences, warm, feels cozy, relaxes our body. What about washing your hands? I'm sure you're doing that lots these days. Just pay attention to it. How does it feel? Around the subject of drinking, have a glass of water. This is my water. You can ask me questions later why it's a copper bottle. Drink water. What kind of water? Where does it come from? Is it filtered? I've got just a simple Brita filter. There's a lot more sophisticated methods out there, but I think filtering water is important. Really important. And then eating food, like we talked about in the previous webinar. Veggies, berries, fruits, different foods. Eat foods with water in it. Start to see where water is around you. You know, I'm sitting here doing this webinar, looking outside, and this beautiful tree is just waving in the wind. And essentially the cellulose and the leaves, you've got the tree trunk full of water. Water is all around us. So it's just an awareness, an active meditation around these different things that we're doing every day. And just slowing down and being still enough to take it in. And then I would recommend on this is, how did you feel afterwards? And you may not be able to jot down a record of your pain or how you're feeling, but just take note of that. So the second thing we're going to talk about is the Wim Hof Method. Now, you may have heard of this. It's WIM HOFF method. There's 3 components to it. One is cold exposure with water, hence we're talking about it today. Second is breathing. And the third is commitment. So when we have these 3 different approaches, and this has been shown to be of benefit for people with chronic pain, people with chronic illnesses, as many of them have inflammation in them. And I think it's a wonderful tool that we can all do. Because one of the best things about it, it's almost free. It's not quite free because you've got, the investment of your time, you've got investment of, paying for water. But, that aside, essentially it's a free treatment that almost everybody can utilize. And the health benefits has been shown is reduced inflammation, a fundamental process that's going on in our bodies all the time with chronic pain. And I would add, all the time in chronic illness. And the amazing thing with cold water exposure, it stimulates the metabolism of brown fat. It's fascinating because brown fat was something I learned about in medical school way at the beginning. First year, we learned about adipose tissue. It's brown fat, white fat. And ever since then, I have never heard anybody talk about it. That's 30 years ago. Until I read the book called The Iceman, written by Wim Hof and another medical doctor, or a medical doctor, explaining this stuff. And in his book, The Iceman, he talks about brown fat metabolism. And the amazing thing is with the cold shower is, you can stimulate this brown fat and it keeps your core temperature up. Now, to be honest, I would not believe this unless I did it myself. And like most things I talk about with chronic pain and how to heal chronic pain is I try them myself. And sure enough, when you drop that temperature of the water, you literally burn brown fat, and because you don't feel cold. You would not believe it unless you try it. What happens around with this, you will start to tone. In his book, the medical doctor who wrote the book was saying it's almost these muscles popped out. Like muscles you never had seen before was popping out. It's quite amazing. And I've had that experience myself. But you're toning because you're utilizing your fat stores for energy, and things are changing. Your inflammation's reducing. Other benefits, you increase your energy. You improve your sleep. And we know for sleeping well, we're healing. Just had a patient this week I was talking to about this subject, and for the first time in a year or 18 months, she's been sleeping 7 to 9 hours, and she feels a different woman. It's one of the aspects of her journey of how to heal pain. And she'd gone from about 4 to 6 hours to 7 to 9 hours. Radically different. And her pain score has dropped to almost 0. Other thing, it helps our medical conditions. So this, in my mind, is something we should all be investigating, trying out. So the question is how? Now, I know some of you are thinking, I'm not doing that because I hate cold showers. Well, I'll put my hand up. I hate them too. Okay, that's my honest opinion. I prefer a really warm shower. And I had a personal experience several years ago. I was trying things like cold showers, and my fingers went white. Raynaud's phenomenon. And I couldn't get rid of it. And it would come on in the winter. It would come on if I had, temperature adjustments with thick coats on, sitting inside of a car. So that was my experience of fear around water. But we'll talk about this in the question and answers. Well, how do you get over this or that problem? So if you have any questions, please ask. So let's talk about how to do it practically. Well, keep it simple. Work with where you are. As far as I can see, there's 5 temperatures for reducing the water. First would be cooler. This is particularly important if you love a hot shower. If you just put a little bit cooler, maybe a little bit tepid temperature. It's not too bad, so it's cooler. And then you go cool, the next step down. Next step would be cold. You're not going to like that unless you're doing the breathing associated with it. And then you got cold. That's like really cold. And then you got freezing just before you put it off. So you pick one and you stick with that. The length of time, start with 1 minute. And I suggest doing this at the end of your shower. Or if you have a bath, you got a nozzle beside the bath at the end of the bath. So for 1 minute, you just can drop the temperature a little bit. And the whole point is to familiarize yourself with it. This is a long haul. This is a long project. You don't need to get to freezing in a week. No. I strongly recommend you do not do that. So you got the end of the shower, you do it for a minute. And something very important to avoid getting white fingers or white toes like I do is a breathing technique in this environment. And it is to breathe in through your nose and out prolonged through your mouth. So that's what you do over the minute. And the interesting thing I can say from personal experience as well as from the science around this is you get vasodilatation, which means the blood vessels dilate, or the blood vessel is enlarged, and you get an increased blood flow to the periphery, that's your fingers and toes, and the skin in your body. So the body's being diverted from the core, your brain, your heart, and your organs, to the periphery. So very, very important thing. And at the same time, because of the breathing, you're stimulating the brown fat and you will not feel the cold. And the last thing to say about this technique is daily commitment. The third component of the Wim Hof Method is commitment. And I recommend you do it every day. Now, just to bring a little bit of balance into this, or to lessen the stress around it, is you don't need to do the same thing every day. Right? Maybe some days you just want to do lukewarm. Maybe you've been doing it for a few weeks, a few months. You don't want to do freezing, or you don't want to do cold. You just do a little bit lukewarm. That's fine. There's no hard and fast rules here. You know, it's a long game. So take your time, do what you feel you should do. I particularly find it's easier to do the colder in the morning, especially at weekends where I've got more time. Whereas the last thing at night before I go to bed, less effective for me personally. So that's the shower component of the Wim Hof method. And I'm really looking forward to your questions on this subject. Now, the second component of the Wim Hof method is a breathing technique outside the water environment. So you're going to be sitting or lying down to do these activities. And the reason is you will get tingly sensations over your fingers, or your body, or your feet, your face. And that's a normal thing. Normal. You may feel lightheaded. And please, if you feel unwell with this, just stop doing it. You know, maybe instead of doing it for a full 30 breaths that I'm about to talk about, just do it for 5, do it for 10, and slowly build it up. Don't want you getting sick, literally, because you're stressing your immune system out or your brain out because of this activity. So slow and steady wins the race. So with this breathing technique, you can do the opposite of the first one. So this way, it's a long inhalation. So it's, and as you can see, through my nose, or as you can hear, through my nose, and it's a short exhalation. So it's like building up the oxygen level. And I think it's the increasing level of oxygen that stimulates this nerve response, this tingling sensation in our body. So at the end of 30 breaths, remember, sit down or lie down. You're going to do a full breath in and a full breath out. And then after this, you're going to hold your breath. So you may be thinking, well, how am I going to breathe if I'm holding my breath and I've just exhaled? Well, there's something called the residual volume, which is about 500 mils or half a liter of air in our lungs that is always there. So even though you have a full breath in or a full breath out, there's still going to be this residual amount. So you're going to measure how long you can hold your breath. And what will happen over time is that you will get better utilization of the oxygen that's in the body. And you know this method is working, not only because you feel better, you got more energy, your sleep's better, probably toning your body or maybe losing some weight, but also your duration of holding your breath, it gets longer and longer. And this ties into the mitochondria, which is the one part of your cell that are the power. Sorry, my son's behind me playing a game. Yeah, the mitochondria is the small powerhouses that give us energy, or ATP. And energy being produced is more effective. And therefore, I think it's part of the process of making the oxygen we do have more efficient in the cells. And this is every cell. Every cell in our body needs oxygen and nutrients, but we're utilizing the cell more effectively through these breathing and through this cold exposure techniques. And the combination of both is the secret sauce to get results. And as you record it every week, my hope is that you actually see a prolongation or a longer time of holding your breath. And the last thing just to mention on this is daily commitment. The third component of the Wim Hof method is commitment. You know, we all know we put time and effort into our activities, we get results. Slow but sure, but it's important to be committed to this. So thanks so much for listening on this webinar. I look forward to your Q&A coming up very soon. Thanks for now. Bye.